Hi, and welcome to our mini-I presentation on root cause analysis. What is the goal of the effort? My name is Bob Latino, and I will be your host for the next few minutes. I appreciate your time. So let's go ahead and get started. What is the goal of most RCA efforts? Having been in this business 20 plus years, we often see that the primary goal of RCA is to eliminate the risk of recurrence of a specific type of event. And this is a very admirable goal. It's a very predominant goal in the industry. What I was hoping to do in this type of short presentation is just broaden the possibilities of gaining a greater benefit from our root cause analysis efforts. What do we feel should be the goal of an RCA effort? In our minds, it is to raise the standard of the knowledge and the skill level of the workforce by their learning from the RCA process. I believe it was Dr. Eli Goldratt, who is the author of numerous books, including The Theory of Constraints and The Goal, who cited that an expert is not somebody who gives you the answer, but it's someone who asks you the right question. And that statement pretty much embodies what we see as the goals of root cause analysis. If I give someone the answers via pick list or that type of mentality, then that person is not forced to derive why that answer is correct. They will just take the answer and run with it. It is a very different scenario when I ask someone how could this have occurred, and they have to explore in their own minds as to all of the possibilities, not just the most likely, as to how that particular event could have occurred. That's the learning process. And when we are forced to be put into teams that have to involve people from the other side of the tracks, people who do not share our opinions and our perceptions, then that even further draws us out of the box into looking at other things that we had really never considered. This is truly the learning part of RCA. How can we raise the standard of knowledge and skill levels for the workforce? When done properly, even the most knowledgeable people about a given process will learn more about that process than they ever knew if they have to go through a root cause analysis with a team of their peers. Because the questioning process that is reiterated continually throughout this will force them to bridge out of their paradigms and say, I never thought about that. I've never sat down with the mechanics and understood it from their perspective, but that is a viable possibility. The exploratory process that RCA is teaches people the effects of their actions, so that when people make a decision, they are now forced to look at the consequences of that decision and its triggering effects and its resonating effects. Therefore, upon completion of such an analysis, team members are much more aware of the consequences of their actions. As a result, there will be fewer adverse outcomes because of such actions, because now they're out in their working environments and they know that if I make this decision, this series of consequences could occur. What detracts from this type of learning? And you see, I have quotations here around the RCA because in previous I presentations, if you were able to listen to those where we go through what is an RCA, it's so loosely defined that no matter who you ask how they solve problems and if they do RCA, the answer will be yes, no matter what tool that they're using. It can range from trial and error to all the way of the most comprehensive and disciplined RCA effort. RCA processes that provide pick lists of answers for the analyst, giving the analyst the belief that all the answers lie within. Now, we're not saying that we're anti-pick list per se here, but when we pose that the pick list is comprehensive and all-inclusive, that's when we're doing a disservice to the analyst, when we're giving them the belief that the answer has to be within there. And I do not know of a process that involves that type of comprehensive list. I don't know of one that exists. So any type of pick list that portrays itself that way is doing a disservice to the people who are following it. All right, let's move on to bullet number 2. RCA processes that do not require proof that their assumptions are true. So this is where the RCA processes, or the ones that call themselves that, are doing RCAs without evidence. So therefore we come up with our conclusions, and oftentimes our conclusions are based on hearsay as opposed to any type of science or any type of provable fact. Bullet number 3. RCA processes that seek a single cause theory as opposed to multiple contributors. Again, being a career RCA person, I have never been involved in an RCA that had one root cause. It has always been a multitude of causes that have lined up both horizontally and laterally on any given day to cause the undesirable outcome. Never have I been involved in an analysis that had a single cause. Bullet number 4. RCA processes that promote quick answers as opposed to accurate answers. Now, oftentimes this is a result of managerial pressure to come up with an answer as opposed to the right answer. It is not difficult to sit in a room with easel pads and Post-its and come up with what seems like very solid logic in terms of a logic diagram or a logic tree or a Y tree, whatever you want to call it. The time needed in conducting a real root cause analysis is not the time on putting up Post-its on a wall. The time involved is in collecting evidence to prove or disprove that what we say is correct or not. So that any time that we take a shortcut on collecting that evidence, we are going to negatively impact the accuracy of our analysis and the strength of our evidence. So managements have to understand that if I'm going to treat my RCA effort by using a 5 whys approach as opposed to a root cause analysis logic tree type of approach, that I may be expensing accuracy for time. How can RCA learning be optimized? By providing consistency to the application of the RCA methodology. This gets back to comparing apples with apples. If we have somebody using a fishbone as opposed to someone using a 5 whys, as opposed to someone using troubleshooting, and on and on. When managements see all of these different techniques out there and they try to make heads or tails out of a comparison, there is no equal comparison, because the breadth and depth of each of these approaches is different. Therefore, the results cannot be compared accurately to each other. And also, each of these types of approaches is going to generate a different type of report. And management, they don't have time to look at all these varying reports and to try to unify them to make sense out of them. So it is confusing that when we provide management's reports that are inconsistent with each other, and that I can't get the nutshell by a quick glance, then that provides confusion to our effort. By maintaining an RCA knowledge base centrally located in the corporation. Again, the goal of the RCA should be that everyone can learn from the outcomes of the analysis so that they understand the logic that occurred based on a poor decision and why it was made. This way, they can become aware that if I am ever put in the same situation, and I know what this particular decision will result in. So having that RCA knowledge base centrally located and accessible will aid in people not making the same types of decisions. By providing easy access to the RCA knowledge base so that others can learn from those who were successful in the past. Let's say that I've had a particular bearing failure on a pump, and my sister facility is located in a different state. I can go in because I have the same pump and the same type of service, and I can look at how my sister facility was able to solve that and whether the conditions are the same in my organization, where I might be able to capitalize on some or all of that logic. Therefore, not having to go over and reinvent the wheel and do it all over again, I at least have a baseline to be able to look at and say, does this fit with my situation, and can it be modified to where I can salvage some of it, some of the logic for my purposes. Many of us have been involved with whether people leave for attrition or whether they leave via re-engineering. Whatever the case may be, is that we lose people who are the most knowledgeable to the corporation, which leaves a void of that knowledge back in the workplace. And oftentimes these people were the ones who knew how to solve the problems, so that when they leave, they're taking the corporate memory with them. It has not been recorded in any type of fashion. That's really what these type of knowledge bases should be doing for an organization, is capturing the corporate memory of the people who were really good at the problem solving, the people who knew how to do the root cause analyses. This will allow you to capture the logic, document it, and communicate it with other people. So in conclusion, even though it cannot be easily quantified, the greatest benefit of RCA is the learning that people exposed to it receive, and the communication of such learning to others in the corporation who can benefit from it. When we're looking at this and we talk about intellectual capital, yeah, it doesn't mean a whole lot to a CFO who's always hell-bent on the numbers, because we do not have a tendency, as a culture for that matter, of putting a value on the intellectual capital of individuals. It's ironic that even when we go to our accounting systems, though our CEO on the front cover will be saying that our greatest asset to our organization is our people, you turn over to the CFO section in there, and people to an organization are a liability, and your equipment is an asset. So we still haven't totally grasped a way to catalog, define, and quantify the intellectual capital of people. But I can tell you that if we make our people more aware of their working environments and the effect of poor decision making, that the net result will be that they will have fewer human errors that result in these undesirable outcomes, and that is quantifiable. Okay, again, I thank you for your time. I know you're busy folks, and I appreciate you taking the few minutes out of your busy day to be able to listen to this. Here is all of our contact information, and I would suggest that you take a look at our new website at www.reliability.com. There's a whole bunch of new forums and articles and web presentations that can help your plight in making your reliability effort as successful as possible.